My name is MaryPat Globig, and I would like to welcome you to a brief conversation with Wayne Shipman, who joined me virtually to share his firsthand experience navigating the homeless system, including the ways staff and volunteers helped him work his way off the street, out of shelter, and into a place of advocacy. What is your experience with homelessness?
I have such a variety of homeless experiences. I wasn't just homeless one time or using homeless services. I was actually in Portland, Oregon, in 2005 from 2002 through 2009. At that time, I was in my mid 30s when I arrived, and back then I had a lot of very kind of turbulent emotional problems coping with things. I was recently divorced, separated, and so I got word that my oldest daughter was actually in permanent placement of foster care due to like severe neglect and abuse issues by the family where she was living. So fast forwarding, I was in transition at that time, separated and divorced. To me, at that time in my life, it was more of an adventure. I wasn't homeless, I was just in an adventure of my own here. And what that turned into was my exposure to the street life in a metropolitan city. That was the first time that I had been exposed to large-scale homeless populations using large-scale homeless services. I was working through temp agencies that would actually place me on jobs where the jobs were kind of considering hiring individuals. And that's what they did, was use temp agencies, and then the individual would work and they could see the individual show their work and then make a hiring decision. That's where I have successfully made the transition several times from using homeless services to having a permanent job, permanently on payroll, and eventually having an apartment. During the time, I was, like I said, I was having a lot of emotional problems, just kind of coping with and just understanding my situation. And so jobs were hard for me. I would get a job, and within a couple of weeks, I would start experiencing anger fits and real depression issues at work, and I didn't keep the job. So, that transition happened to me probably 3 times. And, I would get a job still having emotional problems. But back then, when my emotional problems and kind of what looked like kind of normal behavior for someone in my situation, just confused, angry, victimized, what I did not realize was I had real disorders, real psychological diagnosable disorders. In 2004, I took a particular interest in the homeless, and this is kind of where my advocacy kind of began, and my compelling, even to this day, my compelling to just be involved in some way.
Describe a time when a case manager did or said something that had a major impact on you.
My extended stay in 2007 was a paid dormitory, $10 a night, $70 a week. And 24 hours a day, this facility is staffed. One of the men that worked upstairs during the evening shift, he was not one of those that just kind of stayed by himself, sat at the desk and, told everybody lights out. He was actually very involved with kind of conversations. He loved conversations with us. And he would go out of his way to just kind of walk around in the room while we were all just kind of doing our thing. And he would selectively start conversations. Well, he took a particular interest in me. And while we were talking, I had this very excessive victim mentality. And he understood the barriers of kind of just making progress, positive, noticeable progress. And one night he came to me and I saw that he kind of had a worried look on his face. He said, Wayne, I got to tell you, man. He said, your homelessness is going to last as long as it takes you to take control of yourself. And I was like, well, who are you to tell me, I got to take control of myself? He said, no. He said, I've been doing this for a long time. I've seen people come and go right here in the dorm. And he said, year after year after year, he said, I could point out individuals that's been in here for years, and it's a lifestyle for them. He said, you seem to have this attitude that you can just kind of step out of it whenever you decide. He said, I'm challenging you man to man. He said, if you really think that, he said, if you think you can just snap out of it and step out of homelessness, he said, why aren't you doing that? And then I went down the list. I had this job and this person and this caseworker and my daughter. He said, well, as long as you live in that victim story, Wayne, he said, this is your life, buddy. He said, I'm just telling you as a friend, as long as you feel victimized and you feel like the system owes you something, you're a permanent resident here. He says, I hope you like it. And then he kind of walked away. And the thing was, he was just tired of hearing my usual barrage of my story.
How did that advice impact you?
The way I translated that was, previous to living in that dorm, I was camping in the woods again. And one night, somebody gave me a challenge. It was something I heard on the internet because I got fascinated with self-help, the self-help kind of book section of the library. And whenever it was my turn to use the computer, I was actually going on there finding like what they call life coaches. I wasn't just sitting there, watching videos. I was searching for people that were coaching how to actually have this like step up kind of go-getter attitude daily. And every time that I would get involved in research, I would pick up books about self-help, Wayne Dyer, Tony Robbins, some of the known guys. The number one thing was taking responsibility. And along with that was this guy made me realize it doesn't matter who is at fault. It doesn't matter why I was divorced. It doesn't matter why they said I have a no contact order. It's the fact that it is, and I have to accept it. It's whether it's my fault or not, it starts with acceptance of a person's real situation, not who's at fault, not who cut them off from unemployment. None of that matters. It's what are you going to do now with yourself to get on, move on. So I hope that answers, because that started actually that actually set in my mind a new way of thinking. It became my new way of thinking.
What influential knowledge have you gained by studying self-help material?
The number one thing that we must understand is you don't have to see the end to believe there is an end. And the number one thing, kind of said, paraphrasing, is, well, let's say like right now, let's say my dream is a new car. I want to buy a new car. I want to get a new car. You don't have to have the keys to that car to experience the joy and the feeling of satisfaction that you're going to work yourself towards getting a car. You have to know you're in progress, and you have to know that you're doing the steps. Instead of going to Starbucks, spending $5, you're putting that $5 aside. And, instead of taking days off work to kind of go hang around or go fishing, you're staying there, taking all the hours they're going to give you because you need to build up the resources to get that car.
What advice do you have for social service providers to help their clients remain optimistic about their homelessness coming to an end?
Reinforcing the idea to their clients, you're in progress. You're coming here and you're getting started in a program or in a system, in a service that's actually going to direct you and lead you into the direction you need to be going. You can't wait, sir, until you have your apartment to feel like your homelessness can come to an end. You can't wait until, we get you the subsidized housing or the rental assistance. You can't wait until that happens. You have to understand that by being here right now, doing the enrollment proper, paperwork, getting started is your ticket to a new future. And when the person leaves the building, then, I think they would have like this optimistic attitude.
Some last minute thoughts on the importance of social service providers and volunteers.
I have a high regard, not only just for case managers and caseworkers, but anyone that's involved, like even the guy that, came over and told me that one night, these people come to work knowing that they're going to be directly involved in and engaged with like the most difficult people in the city, the most difficult people to convince, talk to, cooperate with. They come to work anyway. The volunteers show up anyway, and they present themselves and they go for it. That's what I was imagining. I was sitting on the curb looking at that building saying, these people could get jobs anywhere, but they're here.
For more information on local events taking place during Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week, please visit the link provided.